Okay. All right, so today we're going to cover some strategies you can use to stand out at a job fair. We're going to talk about what you can do before the job fair to increase your chances of connecting with someone in a meaningful way. We're going to talk about how to maximize your time when you're at the fair, and also what you can do after the job fair. So I like to start this presentation with this image. This is an actual job fair taken indoors at a local college. As you know, our job fair this week is going to be outdoors, but you can see from looking at this picture, if I asked you what this sounded like, you would probably answer that it's kind of noisy and frenetic. And usually, especially indoor job fairs, are that way. And so I like to show this to kind of give people the idea that if you go, to kind of expect a lot of noise and have to expect you yourself to have to really project your voice and be very outgoing, even if that isn't the way you naturally behave. You kind of have to like really psych yourself up for this so you can hear and, kind of get across to the employers. I want to draw your attention also to how most of the students are dressed. Ideally, for a job fair, you do want to dress professionally. However, I will tell you that if you attend a job fair on a college campus, it is acceptable to wear kind of more casual clothes like you would wear just going to class. And so I like to mention that because I don't ever want someone not to attend the job fair because they're like, oh, I didn't know what was happening and I'm just wearing jeans and a sweatshirt. Especially on a college campus, it is acceptable. But obviously, it's better to make a more professional impression if possible. So if you do know about the job fair, you do want to dress, somewhat professionally. Like you can see that this young man has a button-down shirt and tie. This one here has a jacket on. So again, you want to dress as professionally as you can. Something else I want you to notice is if you look at these tables, employers will often have a lot of paperwork to give you. They may have business cards to hand you. They may also have little goodies for you like chapsticks or pens, that kind of thing. So it's a really good idea to bring with you some type of tote bag so you can put those papers and business cards all in one place. If you're walking around without anywhere to put those items, it gets really awkward really fast with you holding all these things in your hands. And then you won't really have, it won't be easy for you to fill out paperwork. For instance, like you can see these people are all holding clipboards so they can fill out their information to be on the employer's contact list, for instance, or maybe even this might be a job application that they're filling out. So I think something like a tote bag is best because it's easy to get in and out of it versus a backpack, which, you have to take it on and off. But again, whatever you have, just be prepared to have something to put all these little goodies in. What is the last thing I wanted to say about this picture? Oh, bring a pen. Again, employers most likely are going to have pens for you to use, but you just don't want to be in the position where, maybe all their pens have walked off and now you don't have anywhere where you can write down their information for yourself or anything that you can write with to leave your information with the employer. So that's just like a quick visual overview. This is one of those picture says 1,000 words type things, but you can get the idea with how busy and vital or like, lively, how lively these events can be. Okay, before the fair, it's a great idea to research which companies are going to be there. At our job fair coming up this week, we have about 50 employers. It's not realistic that you're going to talk to all of them. And obviously it might not make sense for you to do that. If you're not really interested in working in healthcare, or instance, like you wouldn't really want to waste time going to those booths. But you can look at which employers are going to be there so you know which ones you want to look out for. Maybe there is a certain employer and you didn't happen to notice it, so you can ask staff if they know where that certain booth is. Something else you can do for company names that you don't know, you might want to spend some time just Googling those companies to see if they would be a company that would be worthwhile for you to speak to. I was actually doing that just yesterday for our employers, trying to target certain students who would benefit from talking to these employers. And from the name, I couldn't tell who some of them were. So I learned, oh, this one is at a community agency. This one works in education. So you want to get your hands on a list of employers and research them. Resume. Even if you don't have work experience, it's a great idea to still have a resume. That is something that we can help you with here in the Career Center. But even if you don't have a lot of work experience, you want to have your contact information. You want to have the fact that you're a student here at LA City and what you're studying. You would possibly list classes that you've taken that are relevant to the field you're trying to get into. Even if you have like perhaps volunteering experience, like maybe you did some volunteering through a community group or while you were in high school, maybe you've like helped family members in their stores or babysat, even things like that are worth putting on your resume. So again, you do want to bring with you as many copies of your resume as you think you might want to hand to employers. Not every employer will want one, but it's a great touch to ask them if they'd like a copy of your resume. Also, it's a good idea to create a LinkedIn profile. We actually offer a workshop on how to do that if you're a student as well. I believe there's one later this week. It's not me leading that, but even if you, again, don't really know where to start, if nothing else, you can put the college that you're attending right now, relevant classes you've taken, any types of skills that you have, even if you didn't obtain them in school. You know, maybe you're bilingual. Maybe you taught yourself a certain programming language or something like that. You would still want to start your LinkedIn profile because LinkedIn is a great way for you to follow companies that you speak with at the career fair and or the recruiters that you speak with at the career fair. So let's say, you know, you go talk to somebody and maybe they don't have any opportunities for you right now, like of the type that you're looking for. Or maybe, again, maybe you have to have your degree before you'd actually be a good candidate to work at their company. Well, if you follow that recruiter and that company on LinkedIn and follow up with them, let's say in 4 to 6 months once you do graduate, and kind of remind them, hi, I spoke with you at the career fair at Los Angeles City College. I've since obtained my degree, blah, blah, blah. That's a great way to keep in touch with them. So it's another great idea that you at least have started your LinkedIn profile. I'm going to just do a really quick rundown of what you can put in LinkedIn if you haven't had a lot of work experience or any. You definitely want to put a profile picture. It helps, obviously, people know who you are. But also, if you're actually using LinkedIn to look for a job later down the line, profiles that have pictures get, I think it's like 14% more views than those that don't. So you really want to put a profile picture. Again, even if you haven't earned any degrees yet, you do want to list that you're a college student and where you're attending and what you're studying. Again, profiles that have that educational information get more views. Again, any type of work or volunteer activity, even if you don't think it's related. You know, maybe you're working at a store and you actually want to become a pediatrician or something. The fact that you have work experience still shows that you're responsible, that you have some skills that are marketable. So you do want to list it. And then it is a social network, so you can follow companies that you're interested in. This is a way for you to educate yourself about the field that you'd like to enter and also about the companies that you might want to work for. You can see like what they're publicizing in the news, what types of projects they're working on. And you can also, like, if you find people who also follow those companies, you might want to connect with those people too on LinkedIn. So that's like a real fast rundown. But, you know, again, I always want to encourage students to have a profile or to start their profile because it can be really helpful for networking at events like job fairs. Okay, so we're still kind of thinking about what you can do before you get to the fair. remember the picture. You're basically faced with rows and rows of tables of employers, and you have to be the one to walk up to those employers and start the conversation. And obviously you want to make a really good impression on them. So it really pays to kind of practice your pitch or what you're going to tell them about yourself. So you can come across as like informed and organized. So I'm not sure if you've ever heard the phrase elevator speech. I don't know where the origin of that term comes from, but the idea of it is you want to be able to pitch or introduce an idea, in this case, yourself, in like 20 to 30 seconds. The idea would be like, let's say you're waiting to get on an elevator, the elevator opens, and on that elevator is somebody who can do something for you or somebody that you want to get to know in a career fashion. So you want to be able to tell that person in the brief time of the elevator moving between floors what it is about you that you would want them to know. So some questions you can consider is like, who are you? And so that's not, of course, just your name, but of course your name, but like, who are you? Like, what are you doing? So like, I'm a student here at LA City. I'm studying biology. I'd like to work in a lab one day. I have been working, I've been assisting my professor. I mean, like you can see that I'm kind of like rambling there. You want to make it a little more succinct. And then you want to wrap it up with the ask. What do you want? Are you looking for jobs? Are you just looking to learn more about their company? And if they have any type of jobs, like in a lab setting, for instance, are you looking for an internship? So again, you want to wrap it up with what you're kind of interested in so they can then take over the conversation. I'm going to show you, it's a real short video from a different college where they basically demonstrate an elevator pitch speech in a career fair setting. So let me launch that real quick.
It's always important to have a plan to address someone that you haven't met before or someone who you have an interest in working for them. So it's always important to know what you're going to say when you go up to meet an employer at the career fair.
First and most importantly, you want to have a firm handshake and maintain great eye contact. Employers like to see that confidence and that you're confident with who you are as a person and with what you have to bring to the table.
You don't want your message to be too long. You just want it to be 20 to 40 seconds, just basically introducing yourself, telling them how far you are in school, what your major is, some experience that you've had. One of the most important things that I found is you just don't want to go up to them and start rattling things off your resume. You're not there to recite your resume, because if they want to keep talking to you, all you have to do is hand them your resume and they'll look through it right in front of you. So you want to emphasize things that are more about your personality or things that you've done that you think are important for them to look at first before you hand them your resume.
For example, I could go up to a company at the career fair and say, "Hello, I'm Rex Zhu. I'm currently a sophomore in industrial engineering with an interest in manufacturing, and I'd like to pursue a manufacturing internship this summer." And then after you've kind of had that little interaction, you want to kind of give them that hook.
This is a great opportunity for you to steer the conversation where you want it to go. So the employer wants to know more about you, so you have a better chance of landing that internship or potential summer job.
Employers like to see that, you're really interested in what you're wanting to pursue. And so that 20 to 40 second interaction can really lead on to more better opportunities. So make sure you really practice this up, because you never know when you need to strike an elevator speech.
Practice is one of the most important things so that you're confident when you go up and talk to an employer at the career fair. You want to practice even if it's just in a mirror or with a bunch of friends. You want to try with a bunch of different people so that you get different people's opinions on how they think you should go with it. Go out there, practice a lot, make sure you're confident, and go up there with a smile. Have a good time at the career fair. It's always important to have.
Yeah, so you could see from the sample, it was probably 15 seconds long, but he just kind of introduced himself, said, "Hi, my name is Rex Zhao. This is my major. I'm interested in manufacturing. I'm wondering if you have any internship opportunities in manufacturing this summer." Boom, it makes you look organized. It helps them know what to say to you. And if they don't, if they say, "Oh no, I'm sorry, we're only offering internships in
whatever, marketing. Oh, okay, thank you. Well, could I please have your card? If there are any future opportunities, I'd love to get in touch with you. Something like that. Or you can just say, okay, thank you, and move on. It's fine. You don't have to, not everyone you talk to is going to really be a fruitful contact. But like they also said in that video, it's really helpful to practice it out loud. And if you want to, yes, you can practice it with friends or family members and ask for their feedback. Like, are you coming across distinctly, confidently? Again, it's a skill you have to practice. And so if this is something that you feel like you're not good at, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, but we can all be better. So it's a really good skill to practice. Okay, so there's actually a little template, I believe, on the next slide. Just again, like I've repeated this a few times, but just so you kind of know exactly what you can include. Name, obviously, major, career goal. Attributes about yourself that might separate you from other candidates. Maybe it's that you just took a class in a certain thing. Maybe it's a skill you have. Maybe it's a language you speak. So basically the second and third bullet points are things you can add after basically introducing yourself. And then again, just what you're looking for. So this is another sample of your elevator speech. This is for somebody who's in child development. You could say, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm majoring in child development here at LA City. I've always loved working with children. That's something about yourself. I started babysitting in my early teens, and I've been assisting in my church's Sunday school class for 2 years. I've also completed 5 child development classes. So that really succinctly tells them that you've got experience with kids and you're educated in that realm. And then the ask at the end, I'm interested in learning about any teaching or teaching assistant roles your school may have open. So again, that doesn't take a lot of work, but just, practicing it so you feel confident in approaching these employers. Okay, so now we're at the job fair. You definitely, like they said in the video as well, you want to approach employers with a confident and positive attitude, even if you're faking it. I will tell you that body language can trick people. And if you feel kind of shy and like unconfident, and you're kind of like folding into yourself, that kind of comes across as somebody who's not confident. And so I really challenge you, if you struggle in this area, to practice standing up tall, put your shoulders back. I'll even tell you another trick. I was heard in a body language book that if you actually stand like with your wrists facing out, it makes you look more open. And I'm not saying to stand, like stiffly, but just rather than kind of closing up on yourself, you want to present yourself as open and confident. So use if you're a more soft-spoken person, you might need to practice projecting your voice, smiling, professional dress. Like I had said before, have a pen and a hard notebook or a clipboard, something that you can write on. We've all been in that awkward situation of trying to write on a floppy piece of paper and it doesn't really work. So just have some props with you to help you, take notes and feel confident and not awkward when you're doing that. Talked about the bag and satchel already. Okay, so now let's say you spent an hour and a half going from table to table, talking to various companies about their upcoming roles, etc. Right after the fair, you want to jot down notes. Maybe it's that, oh, there's this school I didn't know about, and I want to remember to connect with them on LinkedIn. Maybe you want to email some of the recruiters that you spoke with and remind them who you are, attach your resume, that kind of thing. Again, you want to help them place you. So if you send a thank you email, you want to remind them you met them at the career fair. We spoke about whatever you spoke about, provide them those details, and then again, attach, for instance, your resume or other relevant information if they've asked for it. We talked about also, going to your LinkedIn profile and adding those recruiters to your profile. Again, it's fine to tell them in the note when you request them how you met them. And before we jump to after the fair, I do want to give you a heads up that sometimes employers will actually want to interview you on the spot at the career fair. If I wasn't somewhat expecting that, that would kind of throw me for a loop. And so I want to make sure you're aware of that, that sometimes they will say, oh, we're doing interviews at 2 o'clock. Could we please schedule you? If it's an opportunity you really want, of course you want to take them up on that. But I would just be prepared with a few basic interview questions prepared in your mind, or your answers to those questions. So for instance, some common ones, and I don't have this written down, this is something that just kind of occurring to me, I wanted to make sure I mention. The most common interview question is a variation of tell me about yourself. And that's a hard question to answer for a lot of people because it's overwhelming. We know so much about ourselves. We're like, well, what do you want to know? And so what you want to think about is what is important for an employer to know about me and the relation to this job. And so again, like if you're going for a job as like a graphic designer, they don't need to know that like you're born in August or something like this. That's not what they want. And I know you know that, but you want to practice like your professional or educational highlight reel, you know, why you're interested in going into graphic design, what types of projects you've created, what types of classes you've taken, who you admire as an artist, things like that. You want to be prepared to speak kind of in an organized way about that. They also might ask you, like, why do you want to work in this industry? That's a pretty common question. And like, what are your goals? Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or like, you know, what's your ultimate career goal? They know you're starting out, but they're trying to get a feel for who you are in relation to that field. I'll just give you another sample. Another really common interview question is them asking you about your strengths or your weaknesses. And so again, a lot of us are not conditioned to be comfortable talking about ourselves or kind of like bragging about ourselves, but you really do need to highlight what you're really good at. It's not bragging, it's just letting someone know what they don't know about you. So be prepared for that. And also with the question about a weakness, what you pick doesn't matter so much. The more important thing is the second part of the question that they may not ask you, but you need to add, which is, and this is what I'm doing to improve, or this is what I have done to improve. So I would be kind of prepared with at least responses to those 5 questions, just in case someone wants to interview you on the spot. Okay, we're winding down here. So I have copied and pasted our current career fair flyers. If you want to attend, but you haven't yet, I encourage you to register with that QR code that's over on the left side of the screen. That way we can ensure that we have lunch for you. So please register. I did include also the list of employers. So if you want to attend and do some research, I would say please take a quick picture of this screen. And you can see they're from all different industries. You know, we've got restaurants, we've got law enforcement, we've got education, we've got entertainment, we've got restaurants, there's all kinds of stuff. One more quick tip with career fairs. Let's say you're studying something like accounting and you don't see any accounting firms, or computer science and you don't see any computer science companies. Every single company has an accounting department, computer science department, or rather, you know, IT department, communications. So sometimes you will see employers that are really specialized to a certain major, like for instance, FBI, maybe you're an admin of justice major or a psych major, that's a great fit. But if you're like a human resources, you know, major, all these companies have human resources departments. So think flexibly too about the type of job you're looking for, because most companies have various roles, even if what they do is not really related to your major. Okay, and then this is just the ending slide that we basically always have. So these are our different links to our Instagram page, our upcoming workshops. Again, I believe David is leading a LinkedIn workshop this week. And if you want to make a career appointment, you can click the QR in the upper right, and we can help you with your resume, your LinkedIn profile, any of that kind of stuff. So that's basically the presentation. Genesis, do you have any questions about anything? Let me actually stop the recording real quick. Okay.
No,